Oh, this week's Sedra is such a Lecha. The land of Israel is unlike any other land, physically and metaphysically. It is a unique place on earth, and there's simply no place like it. The land of Israel is not just a national homeland for the Jewish people, it's a land divinely chosen for the divinely chosen people. The Jewish people's ancestors made the land of Israel home for them and for all of their descendants. The land of Israel isn't a free gift. God has expectations with how the Jewish people are to live on their land. God warned the Jewish people about life in Eretz Yisrael. He said, do not defile yourself in any of those ways. It is because of their actions, the non-Jews that live in the land, that I'm casting out the other nations out of the land before you. In his commentary to this warning, Ramban asked, forbidden sexual relations are matters affecting personal conduct and do not depend on the land of Israel. So why should the land be affected by these personal and moral acts? Ramban answered that God allotted to all nations constellations in the heavens, but the land of Israel is the inheritance of God. He has placed none of the angels over Israel, since he gave it as a heritage to his people, the descendants of the patriarchs. The Jewish people in the land of Israel will not be subject to other powers at all. God sanctified the people who dwell in his land with the sanctity of observing the laws against forbidden sexual relationships and with the abundant commandments. It's for this reason that God said, you shall keep all my laws, all my commands, and you should do them, that the land that I bring you to live in doesn't vomit you out. In this week's Torah portion, God said to Abram, I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur to give you this land. Abram responded, God, how should I know that I am to possess it? The Talmud is critical of Abram's question. Abram said before God, perhaps the Jewish people will sin, and you will do to them as you did to the generation of the flood. God said to him, no, I will not do that. But Abram continued questioning God. How do I know? He said. Incredible. God said to him, I've already established for the Jewish people the verses of the Torah pertaining to the halachot of the korbanot. Whenever they read these portions, I will deem it as if they sacrificed an offering before me, and I will pardon them for their sins. Returning to our Torah portion, God said to Abram, know well that your offspring shall be strangers in a land not theirs, and they shall be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will execute judgment on the nation they shall serve, and in the end they shall go free with great wealth. The Chizkuni wrote that God used the same words, no, yodei teda, when punishing Abram, that Abram had used when asking a question of God, which was sinful. His descendants were ordained to endure exile as an example of matching the punishment to the crime. But Avram wasn't the only Jew to cause his descendants to suffer based on his lack of faith in God securing the land for the Jewish people against their enemies. The spies made the same mistake. After hearing their punishment, that God wouldn't allow them into the land for believing the spies' report that even with God's promise, the Jews wouldn't be able to conquer the land, Moshe warns them not to try to enter Eretz Yisrael. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites will be there to face you, and you will fall by the sword, inasmuch as you have turned from following the Lord, and the Lord will not be with you. Again, the Chizkuni wrote, for you turned away from Hashem again. The reason why the spies frightened you was in order to turn you away from God. And now when they succeeded, you still did not place your confidence in God. You didn't listen to him. The only reason why he is not going to be on your side is that you constantly rebel against him. The Jewish people's success in the land of Israel isn't controlled by similar rules that govern other nations. The Jewish people's success in Israel is in direct correlation to their observance of the Torah and their faith in God protecting them against their enemies. We are blessed to witness the third commonwealth of the Jewish people on their land, and calculations of our security cannot be based on faith alone, but they also cannot run counter to God's commands in the hopes that a strategy alone can keep the Jewish people safe. Forgoing settling the land of Israel, a command of God to the Jewish people, in mistaken hope that appeasing our enemies will earn us security is foolhardy. The lesson of this week's Torah portion is serious and must be taken seriously. Security of the Jewish people on the land of Israel is dependent on our relationship with God, not on a strategy of trying to give away our land in the hopes that our enemies won't kill us. Shabbat Shalom.